friends, and welcome to another episode of Discourse in Magic. For this episode, I am trying something completely different. This is called Magician Appetizer. So it's going to be a small but meaty piece of food for thought for you to have about magic this week. A shorter episode than usual, and I've got a little bit of news at the very end, but this will be a new structure for the solo episodes that I can tell you about something that's been bouncing around in my head that week or that month. And maybe you can use it to help make your magic and what you do a little bit better. So this week, it is about putting yourself in the shoes of your audience. And I think in every industry, the biggest challenge around is to remember what it's like to be an audience or a layman or a newcomer for the very first time. Everybody struggles with that when they're dealing with customer service and things like that. And all the time when I rewatch back my show, I'm watching it back like I'm a director, right? And I look at the minute details and I'm like, oh, maybe if you said this, or maybe if you did this, or, that's how I watch shows very critically. But take a moment, and if you have a video of your show or a video of you performing or speaking, sit back and watch it like you're watching it for the very first time, like you're a layman, like you're a newcomer, and see what that feels like. And I think anytime we do that, anytime we can put ourselves in the shoes of our audience, it's better. In magic, it's super hard to forget what it feels like to know how a trick works. It's really, really hard, but try your best to do what you can. When you watch a trick, think to yourself like, if I was an audience member, what would I think? Kids magicians are really great at this, right? Because they're not saying the words that are for them, they're saying the words that are for their audience. Put yourself in the shoes of your audience and see how it helps you. I do it for my magic all the time. I also do it for my website. So sometimes I'll go to my website and I'll be like, how would you feel if this is your very first time arriving on this website? So if I just sent you an email and I said, hey, I know you've never spoken, but you've got an event in my city. I think I'd be a really perfect fit. Take a peek at my website. That's not what it would say, but let's say I said that and I put a link. Now I go and look at my website and I pretend to be that guy. And I'm like, what does he think the first time he goes? Maybe he thinks, ugh, what? Why are there photos with kids? My event has adults, right? Or maybe he thinks like, whoa, this guy looks like he knows what he's doing. Or maybe he thinks, this guy was in the Toronto Star. And you try to go through and you try to think like, how would they feel? I do it when I'm going through my website, and anytime that you can do it, it's of a lot of value. So ask yourself, how do they feel when they're doing it, when they are approaching it for the very first time? So with your magic, maybe watch back a video of you performing and watch it back. It's very hard to do, but watch it back as an audience member and not as a director. And basically, I have been watching back and experiencing back the podcast in the last few months. I signed up for the email list like I was a newcomer. I started listening at the very beginning, one episode at a time, going in order, and seeing what it feels like to discover the podcast and start following the podcast if I, as a new person, started doing that in 2019. And it opened my eyes to a lot of things that were doing really well, and a lot of things that, this podcast doesn't really do very well. And one of them is a lot of the early episodes between Tyler and I are just for us to talk. And when I think about like someone new discovering this podcast, I don't think that those episodes help point them in the right direction. The same way that, if you look at your magic, you think like, why am I saying this line of script? Is that for the audience to connect at all? Or was it for me, right? Am I not even caring about the audience at all? And I think in looking back at this podcast, some of the early episodes were more for Tyler and I's self-discovery than they were as incredible advice for people in magic. And I know now I put a lot more work into making sure that anything that goes out through this microphone, and, I want to make sure that it's really great wisdom. And when we recorded the episodes, there was like 37 people listening to it. But now when I look back in the stats and I see how many people have listened to some of these old episodes with Tyler and I just rambling about nothing, and when I listen to them myself as a newcomer in the last few months, I felt like they don't really do a service to the podcast. So a lot of those episodes, a lot of those old episodes are going to disappear. So if you want them, now is your last time to go listen to them or download them or something like that. But obviously I wouldn't recommend it. That's why I'm deleting them, because they're not our best and they're some of the least downloaded episodes episodes of the podcast, I see all the statistics, right? So those are going to be gone. So this is your warning for that. But I think more than that, use this episode and use this idea of reflecting on what you do as a newcomer to look at some of the things that you yourself do and look at it like a newcomer. So if you have a website, look at your website with fresh eyes and think like, what instincts do I feel about this person, right? Or if your show, just watch the first 5 minutes of your show and think like, people make first impressions very quickly. So think like, what's my first impression of this person? What's my feeling of how this show is going to progress? Am I bored already? Am I like so excited for what's coming? Has he like got me on the edge of my seat? And try to think of watching that person as not being you, but as being you going to see a show for the very first time. Anyways, I hope that helps you. I hope you learned something and take something away from today. And let me know what you thought of this entrepreneur appetizer. Hit me up on Instagram at Discourse and Magic. And otherwise, I will see you next Thursday. Peace.